Hello, this is Truth Be Told Transformation, and I'm Bonnie Burkert, here to share tools for transformation to live your highest truth. One thing that's true for me is wanting to understand the many deep meanings of shamanism. Is it truly, I always had an association with shamans being from Central or South America. So that's not true. That's not true at all. In my years of doing this program, I'm learning that there's so much more to this. And so to talk more about it, I've invited a special guest to tell us more. Shaman Durek, welcome to Truth Be Told Transformation.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really honored to be in your presence and to share this conversation with you.
Well, thank you kindly. And I titled the show after the name of your book, Spiritual Hacks? Is that?
Spirit hacking?
Spirit hacking. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what that means? How can, putting those two words together, I definitely like the concept of hacking. So let's see what you mean by that.
So, we live in a time in our life where energies are affecting us on many multiple levels. And a lot of people are getting more into finding ways to activate their system, like in biohacking, in the way they have food and nutrition, and the way that they are optimizing themselves in their system. Spirit hacking is a simplified way of utilizing all different forms of spiritual techniques that have been passed down through many generations, through many different people, through many cultures that have been brought together through my studies and my understanding of shamanism, and then other people's cultures, as well as even going deeper into the different philosophies of the different people's cultures and belief systems, and then finding the exact frequencies, energies, tools that activate energies fast and quickly in your body, so that you are actually creating a different awareness of sustainability and maintaining an awareness of how your being facilitates energy in this embodiment.
Oh my gosh, there's so much there to work with right now. So I'm going to just stay with the end. How our being maintains the energy? Is that the term that you used?
So your being your human body is literally operating in a field of many different intelligences, but there is an operating energy in your system. So your body is held in matter, but the operating system in itself is an energetic, free way of intellect that is operating both in intelligent, from intellect, from frequency, mind, emotion, color, sound, you name it, right? And so your body's channeling these energies continuously, even when you sleep and when you're awake, and even when you don't even realize you're channeling energy. And the question is, where are you channeling energy from? The universe is a vast open space of many different dimensional fields of energy that operate in different intelligence, that have different frequencies and vibrations and patterns of those vibrations that are intersyncing and also relaying themselves on one another. So literally, human beings are either tapping into those aspects or tapping into other dimensions with different vibrational fields. And some vibrational fields are higher in nature and others are lower in nature. And in shamanism, it's about being able to understand your relationship to those fields and the intelligence that governs those fields. And that could be nature, that could be animal, that can be elemental, that can be angels, that can be entities and beings from other planets. That can be a multitude of different things. And again, it depends on the person who's channeling those energies. Or it could be lower dimensional beings. It can be beings that are stuck in lower density, that are operating in lower density consciousness. Again, there's no judgment. It's just about how you are operating that intelligence into this world. And then what is your free will choosing to use that intelligence for?
Okay, yeah. No, that's a brilliant concept, and I want everybody to really lock into that in terms of the possibilities that we have to control this. So I'm going to use this opportunity. I want to hear more about that and dive deeper, but I do want to ask a little bit more about your lineage, and maybe just give us, like I said in the beginning, let's talk a little bit about shamanism in general and understand the terms, because I think that it's becoming more readily known, that term, but I feel like there's so much to it. So I'd love your education on that.
Absolutely. So, my lineage is really simple. My father is African American, who has roots that go all the way back to Haiti and West Africa. And my culture comes from the Yoruban tribe and the Umbutu tribe. And so a lot of my knowledge comes from African wisdom. And what we have to understand too is that in my earlier years, when I first realized that I was having these abilities and this lineage passed down to me, I also wanted to study other things. So I also studied, world religion. I studied, philosophies. I studied the Bhagavad Gita. I've studied Buddhism. I've studied all of these very different things, and I've also lived in different countries of the world to be able to get a little bit more perspective on the human development of emotional intelligence and understanding anthropology and understanding how sociology plays a certain aspect of how we develop our consciousness and the way in which we use it. And so for me, I'm a spirit shaman, and there's different types of shamans in the world. There's earth shamans that deal only with plant medicines and everything to do with nature. They study, everything from botany to agriculture to understanding the different levels of how plants operate within your system and how much you can take and, how much diet you can bring into your body. Then there's water shamans who study water flow and energy and how it affects us. And then they pray into waters. They put symbols in water. Sometimes they might even drop certain herbs into water and pour it over your body or submerge you or to put you into some type of ceremony where they're submerging you in the water to heal certain traumas and to take you into certain dimensional fields. And then there's air shamans, and air shamans are shamans that do more things with the throat. They speak in tongues. They use sounds of animals. They play musical instruments. They use sound as a way to move you into the different levels of frequency and energy into the different spiritual realms. And then there's fire shamans, and they do more like fire ceremonies, everything from sun ceremonies to tamazkals to fire ceremonies to fire rituals to anything to do with heat or sweating or anything to do with the sun. And then there's spirit shamans, which is what I am. And a spirit shaman is, we speak to spirits. We have a clear communication to spirits. We talk to all forms of spirits. We talk to spirits in the higher realms, the lower realms, any realm that needs to be spoken to gain clarity, information. We also know how to do spiritual interrogation so that no spirits are manipulating us or tricking us in any form, in any way, which most of them don't anyway, because they have nothing to lose by telling the truth. But some spirits, some people like to trick themselves. So I always have to make sure that I'm interrogating their spirits to make sure they're either in alignment to light and love at the highest level. Spirit shamans, we move energy. We can move energy. We can shift energy. We can create new energies. We can create dynamic forces of energy that counterbalance other energies. And it's quite amazing, spirit shamanism, because there's so much of spirit shamanism has been lost on the planet because of a lot of the people who were practicing spirit shamanism were put into slavery and were told not to practice their cultures. And so a lot of spirit shamanism lives in a lot of African traditions and a lot of Maori traditions, Hawaiian traditions, Polynesian traditions, Inuit, Eskimo. So a lot of times people think shamanism only exists in Peru or Native American culture, and that's not true. That's just because Hollywood has depicted it as such and hasn't really given the teachings that real shamanism, all shamanism comes from Africa, and it comes from spirit shamanism. And then of course it goes down from that to sound, vibration, and ceremony, which is air shamanism, and then honoring the fire and the sun, which is fire shamanism, and then acknowledging the water, the waves, the energy, how water affects us. That's water shamanism. And then earth shamanism, which is the teachings of the medicines and the plants and the way in which the animals and medicines and the plants operate within our structure and within our relationship and harmony to nature.
So good. Thank you. I love it. I love hearing about the different, it makes perfect sense that there would be specialists in each and every element.
Yes.
Now, how did you figure out? So it's also, hearing your background and that you've studied on a lot of different levels, that you've studied, religion and, and I love how you mentioned sociology and, really looking at how different cultures affect who we are as people. I really like hearing that. So how did you happen to zero in then on the spirit shamanism being the world that worked best for you, that you were best able to help others? How did it start? What were some of those stories that had started coming through you?
Well, when I was a kid, I used to hear spirits, and I knew that things were under my bed and in my closet. And I would go to my father, and he'd be like, "Oh, don't put your energy there because the world is different and no one's going to understand you. That's in our family." And we had to hide a lot of our family into Seventh-day Adventists and religion so that people wouldn't, and I mean, you have to understand, my father was around at the time where people were being lynched, and families were being murdered because they were not following the way that people wanted things to be. So for me, he was always very dismissive about me stepping into that because he already knew about it because of my grandmother and what he grew up with as a kid. And but it didn't make it go away. It just was him putting a restriction on it, but it didn't make it go away. So I just got tired of being bombarded by spirits at night, and I started talking to them and listening to them talk back to me. And I had the respect because I knew they were there. So I had the respect to know that they could speak to me. So I would just listen to their long conversations about who they are and where they come from and what they're about and why they're in my room. And they gave me a lot of information. So then I started just keeping my senses open to anything else that wanted to talk to me. And then I started hearing the trees, and I started hearing animals, and I started hearing the earth, and I started hearing other spirits and other dimensions and so forth. And it just became a natural part of who I am. And my aunt, who passed away, bless her dear soul, she told me that I was a representation of the spiritualist in my family. And we had a lot of spiritualists in my family. And so I represent the spiritualist, which is the spiritual shamans. And we have that natural ability in our bloodline. And all of my family members have it, and so it just became a natural part of who I am. And I thought when I went to school, when I got to kindergarten and elementary school, that I thought everyone had that ability, because I didn't see it as a gift, and I never do see any of these things as gifts. I see them as just a natural birthright of who we are as individuals on earth. And I think that a lot of people have been shut out from their natural abilities because of certain phobias and fears and certain indoctrinations that have been placed upon them, that has limited them from seeing the potential of their being in their ability to create the level of awareness that is capable of accessing those sensitive dimensions that have always been present and always been there, and that they kind of like turned it off or shut it out, which also handicaps people and puts them at a disadvantage, because I believe that people who are not tuned into listening to the spirits and the guides and the ancestors and the angels that support them do themselves a great disservice, because they are not getting the clear knowledge and wisdom that they require in order to make choices. I would not feel comfortable doing anything in life, if it was anything on any level, if it wasn't being able to speak to the council and get guidance before I make decisions, or before I engage in relationships, or before I go into any situation, because I want to make sure that I'm doing things that are coming from the highest level of truth, the highest level of love, and that I'm aligning myself with God's love and will for me to be happy and to be joyful and to have a good life. And I want that for everybody on the planet. And so I stuck with it, and I stuck with it. And I think anyone who sticks with the energy dimensions or anything that has to do with the supernatural is a true pioneer in our day and age. And I think that people should put more acknowledgement on those people as heroes, to be able to break through the stigmas and the fears and the fears that people have in the unknown. And I just stuck with it no matter what anyone said. And it just, my powers got stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, until when I hit 14 years old, I started taking my first client. And my clients were like in their 40s and 50s, and they were shocked that they were talking to a 14-year-old kid. But at that point, I had so much information to share with them and so much knowledge to share with them, but it doesn't mean I have it all figured out either. I think it's also a part of being humble and realizing there's no hierarchy, that I'm here to continuously empty my cup and to take in more information so that I can continue developing and fine-tuning the ability to be in divine alignment.
Yeah. I mean, it really does take courage. And I think about you when you were young, and hearing the story from your father, which is, is very, very heart-wrenching. I mean, you just think about all of this ancient wisdom that's been suppressed through the years. And off, we'll definitely cite Africa, northern Africa's throughout the entire continent, and some of that ancient wisdom that's been lost. And where might we be as a species if we had the courage to, I don't know, to listen to our hearts and not just to dogma, doctrine, and
create hierarchy.
Yeah, right, right, exactly. So, I mean, it is truly quite fascinating. Now, when you were just a little buddy at 14, doing readings for adults, what was coming through? What was your process? Was it just like, I see perhaps relatives that had passed or stories like that, or were you working with any tools?
Yeah, so it's interesting because tools to me are more just divine intellect and emotional intelligence. It's operating in your natural order of who you are as a human being. We see them as tools because we facilitate them to deal with problems. When I was a kid, however, I didn't see it that way. I saw it as the spirits were telling me about the people. They told me what I needed to know. They could show me their thoughts. They showed me their emotions. They showed me what they're doing and when they're lying to me and when they're being honest and when they're lying to themselves and when they're self-betraying themselves. And I just paid attention, and spirit would tell me, say this, do this, operate this, say this. And I did, and amazing things would happen. And so I just kept trusting that process. And as I trust the process, I would be put into more and more of the development of these things by acknowledging different people's cultures and ideas and concepts and really understanding the depths of the wisdoms that were being presented, not as oh, I'm so powerful kind of thing, but how can I be of greater service to humanity? How can I show up to create a space for people to shine in, for people to see their greatness, for people to see their power, not my power, because it has nothing to do with me. It's all the glory goes to God and to our mother and father God. It's about people being able to see their own power and what they can do with that power when they align it with love, when they align it with kindness, when they align it with generosity, when they align it with compassion, when they align it with God's love for them to love others the way God loves them. And that, I think, removing the dogma from it was really a challenge for me because I was also, studying deeply all of these different realms of conscious thought while also being indoctrinated in different forms of religious ideas and concepts, and some of which I found very beneficial for my development, and some I found hindrance to my development as well. And being able to kind of find which one weaved better into me energetically that actually allowed me to create more love versus more resistance. And so when I started, going into different people's cultures from like Hinduism and Buddhism and Christianity and, and studying the Quran and living in these different countries like Israel and Turkey and Egypt and all these places that I've lived, and Italy and all these other beautiful places, transcending so much information of the culture and the dialect and the way people speak and why they say certain words and what it means to them in their culture to practice their spiritual, beliefs that they have been, brought through. It gave me a really interesting viewpoint on human intellect and the difference between functional thinking and malfunction of thinking, and really being able to piece together a clarity on humanity that allows me to see the gifts that humanity claims as gifts, but are truthfully just their divine birthright, and being able to amplify those things in people. So yes, I can speak to spirits on the other side. Yes, I can help people communicate to their loved ones. Yes, I can communicate to other beings in other parts of the galaxy. Yes, I can communicate. Anything that has ability to have consciousness, I can access. However, it's why am I accessing it? For what purpose? A lot of times people will come and say, oh, I want to know my past lives. I'm like, why? Why do you want to know your past lives? Does it have anything to do with this life? That's what you should be asking yourself. Why do you want to be entertained? Because I'm not here to entertain people. I'm here to serve people, to serve my mother and father God as an excellent and divine servant of love. And to see people recognize themselves in the presence of themselves as the creator, in embodiment, as the spark of God's love, in embodiment, as them, as me, as the flower, as the tree, as the sun and the moon, and everything else that is of God in divine mother, father God consciousness and child God consciousness. So I live for the purpose of being a disruptor in this world, but also an enhancer of life, and life, not from the sense of life in its sense of how life is played out, but true life, which is the spirit that moves you to have life.
It's great. You're putting it on us. I love that. I like that you are asking us, okay, you know, specifically, you were saying the past lives. Why do you want to know your past lives? Why?
Yeah.
What? No, it's really good. You're putting it on us, Durek. You're really making us be very, very clear with what we're saying, right? Truth be told. What is your truth? And so it isn't about entertainment. You're asking us to be extremely real. You are challenging authenticity. Right on. Bring it on. So, you know, I got to hear one of your talks before this coming in, and I loved how you were sort of challenging us on our concepts of how we think messages and this divine information is coming through, that we think that angels are supposed to look or sound a certain way. Please give us your thoughts and opinions on that. I think it's really great. It just opens us up to a broader possibility.
Yeah, and thank you, my love, for saying so. I think one of the things that I find very fascinating about human development is that human beings are so dramatic, and I'm one of them. I'm the biggest drama queen. We're all drama queens. We all make things harder than they have to be. It's not like that in the spirit world. It's quite simple and fun and playful, and it's very childlike. And yet we make things so intense. Like, I see people literally do spiritual things that spirits are like, they don't have to do that, but they choose to do that. So, we let them do that because they have free will. So we can't interfere, but until they ask for us to interfere. But it's fascinating because human beings like to complicate things more so than they need to be complicated. And when we get into the clarity of how fun and playful angels and beings and spirit guides and ancestors and the realms are, it's a very different thing. And like, even in religion, when I was studying religion, people will say, oh yeah, there's the demons and devil and Satan, and they lie to you. And no, they don't lie to you because they don't care to lie to you, because they don't care, because they don't have this kind of a way of thinking of like, oh, I have to lie to you because I have to be deceptive. No, they just tell you exactly the truth. If I ask a spirit in the underworld, why are you doing this to this person? Why are you hurting this person? Why are you making this situation happen to this person? Why is this person suffering financially? They'll tell me exactly what they're doing. They have no reason to lie to me, because they're doing what they're doing in service, and that's how they see it. And their service is to serve anyone who chooses to go against the light, or anyone who chooses to be in opposition to their divine light of their being. That means that you hide, you run, you duck, you cover, you don't want to take responsibility, you don't want to be authentic. And so, there's got to be something that supports you on that. And that's where free will comes in. Free will gives you the opportunity to access all levels of support. So if you are wanting to lie to yourself, then you'll have a spirit that comes and will help you lie. If you want to be mean to yourself, then you'll have a spirit that will come in and bring people in to be mean to you, to demonstrate how you are to yourself. If you want to self-betray yourself by being a people pleaser and not really honoring your truth, then people will come into your life to make sure you stay a people pleaser, because that's what you're asking. So all of these things are not as bad as we think they are. We just don't understand how it operates. And so it looks to us as a complicated thing. People say, oh, it's so hard to talk to my guides. No, it's not. You just don't believe that they're there, and you don't have respect. Because if you had respect, you'd know that they would talk to you, and you would know that they're there, and you would listen. So it's not that difficult. And so when I teach people how simple these things are and how easy it is to be able to access these levels of energy and communication and activation and and what I call essentially spirit hacking. But what I'm actually really doing is upgrading humanity to our next embodiment. It's the upgrading of the human being becoming greater than what it is. It's like I said recently, that gossip and people who continue to gossip instead of acknowledging that person and wishing anointments and prayer and energies and activations for them, to their life to change, instead of talking about people, is a form of mental health, is a form of mental illness. When people curse at each other, it's a form of mental illness, because why would you curse at what God created? Why would you curse at someone that is your brother and sister? Again, human beings don't fully recognize the connection that we all are one. And so therefore, They don't realize the self-betrayal they do to themselves. Every time they hurt someone, they're actually hurting themselves. And every time they lie, they're only lying to themselves. And every time they cheat, they're only cheating to themselves. And all of these things are just done to the self. And what people are experiencing as pain is only the registration of truth emanating from the picture of what they think things should be versus the reality of how they really are.
I mean, when you say it, it seems you make it simple. And I'd love it. I'm going to reiterate, by the way, what you said about the drama, how we do create drama. And that one of the things I'm hearing, it doesn't have to be this hard. It doesn't have to be so difficult at all. And I mean, how encouraging is that? I mean, how's that for a beautiful takeaway? So why do we do that? I mean, and I think about, maybe I grew up in Europe. And so my father's German, and there's some with that culture, that lineage, there's a certain I guess sort of formality and structure, I feel, that living in Germany and Austria as a kid, that I grew up with. And it's very interesting to see, I've had opinions given to me that certain spiritual practices I have, Kundalini yoga specifically, that's got a certain regiment to it. Why? It's like, well, maybe that's you anyway. Are you sure you don't want something that's a little bit more free and playful, like what you're saying? And to let it come, it doesn't have to be hard. I have to work hard at this. I have to work hard at having a podcast. Or maybe it's fun and it's light and we'll have plenty of things to talk about without the struggle. And it's almost, I do that to myself. I think that everything has to be harder than it really is.
Let's find out why. Council members, why does our beloved think that it has to be harder than what it is? Okay. Council member says, because you believe that if you don't work hard for it, you didn't earn it. And so they said you've created that belief because of your father. And they said that you have been holding on to that belief as a way to identify how much you actually achieve and do. It's kind of like holding a roller stick to everything that you create and do. And when you don't feel like you have done enough to be deserving of something, then you feel that you have to work harder or you have to make it harder. And therefore the reward should be greater because you put so much discipline and so much focus and so much time into it that the reward should be greater. And when the reward does not show up in the way that you think it should show up, then you think you've done something wrong, and then you go back to the drawing board and then you do it all over again. And Spirit says that is imbalance because the idea of you doing anything should never be done out of the idea that you have to do it. It should always be a joyful expression of will, meaning like, I'm not here with you in this podcast because I have to do your podcast. And do this podcast because it's what I'm supposed to do. It's because I choose to share my love, and that brings me joy. And it brings me joy to open up space to hold that with you in this divine moment together. So that's what moves me to do the things that I do. I don't do it because, I have to do it in order to be Shaman Durek. No, Shaman Durek is Shaman Durek, regardless. It doesn't matter if people like me or don't like me. What matters is that I wake up every day and I do what I love and I enjoy what I do and I have fun doing it. And my little boy inside is excited for all of the great things that it gets to experience in this sojourn. And if that makes people happy, if that heals people, if that moves people, if that makes people come out of their shell or come into the light, great. And if people don't like it and they're fearful of it and they're afraid of it, fine. I'm not here to save this world. I don't believe in the Superman, Superwoman complex. I believe very much in the act of being of service through the act of joy. And so with you, what the Spirit says is that once you let go of this idea that the value of what you do is not antiquated in the reward is antiquated in the understanding that you are rewarded because you choose to be rewarded, because you're embracing it as a truth and as a belief, as a part of your living experience. And so therefore, a lot of people have these old adages of conflict because of religion and dogma, which is the idea that God punishes those and rewards those who are good. But that's not true. And you can see how that plays out when it comes to money and wealth and prosperity and economic, economic sharing on the planet. You could have a person who's not kind and not loving, whatever, and be very wealthy and very rich. It has nothing to do with any of those things. And spirit always reminds me that it doesn't. And so people think that they have to put themselves through these intense regimens. And again, you're already put through intense regimens just by being on planet Earth, where you have to like pay bills, put a roof over your head, put food on the table, go to the bathroom, take a shower, do all of these very things that you have to do, or there's consequences if you don't do them. So there's got to be a place where you let go. There's got to be a place where you're a little bit more ease and grace. That's why I say, give me grace, Mother and Father God. Give me grace, angels. If I am being too burdensome, if I'm putting too much expectation, if I am putting too much on me, too much heaviness, if I am affected by so much of me trying to meet other people's expectations, give me grace. Return me back to the place where I find joy, where I find freedom, where I find playfulness, where I find lightheartedness, where I find grace. And when we take on that level of consciousness, the value of our life becomes something very different than how we were indoctrinated by our parents and by our guardians and by our authority figures. And we begin to change the understanding of living to being more about truly living, instead of burning yourself out, becoming a workaholic, a people pleaser, expectations, holding yourself up to high standards, trying to be a perfectionist, trying to meet some idea that you feel you have to meet in order to be good, to be a good person, and to be righteous. Those are all energies that are actually contradicting your spiritual evolution, because spiritual evolution isn't held in force, is not held in righteousness, it's not held in I have to's or I better or else. It's held in delight. It's held in joy. It's held in freedom. It's held in bliss. It's held in playfulness. It's held in comfort and nurturing and love. And these are the things in which we human beings could choose, if we elect to, bring more into our life to be able to see our lives with more ease and grace. As I say, ease and grace is the pace.
I love that. And definitely my mantra. Thank you for the read. I really appreciate it. And I will listen to that again. And I hope that others that hear it perhaps learn from it as well. And it's really true. So ease and grace, and thank you. And we're going to work with that very much. So Shaman Durek, where do you see humanity at? I mean, I feel like in so many ways we are open, more open than ever. We've got a platform like this to share this wisdom. And yet at the same time, I feel that people are overloaded, maybe too much media, perhaps not eating the right foods, even though there's access to very, very, very high vibrational foods out there. So how do you think we're doing out there?
Oh, I think we're great. I think everything that's happening on the planet is exactly what we all knew was going to happen. And what we're in right now, as I talk about it in my book, we're in the blackout period. This is the transitional energy of the where energies begin to what we call go into a flux. And so you get to see the flux very clearly. You get to see people who are operating in high vibrational fields, and you get to see people who are operating in low vibrational fields. And really, it's so beautiful to be alive at this time, to see that, to see how the dismantling of these vibrational fields are creating so much of the old sediments of energies that have not been dealt with, are taken responsibility of through the aspect of the divine light principle shining into the human awareness as the shadow, which is why I always say shadow love, right? Because you got to love the aspects where you're not taking responsibility. So what it's doing is it's making us as human beings look at the places where we're not showing up with compassion, where we're not bringing more love in, where we're still having issues with race and sexuality and all of these very, very, how do I say, archaic, dark age ways of thinking that are being removed out of our DNA and out of our system. And to have that happen, we have to get shook. We have to have literal experiences of losing control, or feelings that like people go into, oh, the world's falling apart. No, the world's not falling apart. The world is rebuilding itself. And in order to do so, it has to create a dismantling. And that dismantling has to mean it has to show all the things that created imbalance. And so we get to see that now, and we get to make choices consciously. It doesn't matter how angry you get or how mad you get or how many times you kick your feet down on the ground and stomp and say things aren't fair, it's not fair, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't change anything. What changes things is your relationship to it, the way you choose to perceive it, right? Like I can look at someone saying something really nasty to me and look at them and just realize that they're in a different dimension. And then of course that makes sense why they're saying what they're saying, but it doesn't mean I have to take it in and make it a validated truth to me, because I already know the truth according to me, which is love, because God tells me, and angels tell me, and the spirit guides and the ancestors and the elemental spirits and the orishas and all the divine beings tell me all the time, you're loved, you're loved, you're loved. So, I mean, how many times do I have to tell you before you start actually believing it? And so if someone tells me something different or something low vibration, I realize it's low vibration. And then what I have to do is just simply realize that that person who's setting all that negative energy to me, I have to dismantle myself from them. And so the way I dismantle them is by wishing so many beautiful things for them. Like I start visualizing, them being successful and happy and having more success and having everything their hearts ever desired, having them fall in love with the person who really loves them and sees them and embraces and nurtures them. And being able to come into what we call the divine forgiveness, not the human forgiveness, which is fake. The human forgiveness is like, I forgive you because you want to feel like you forgave them, but you really don't. Divine forgiveness is the ability to want that person to succeed and be happy and be fulfilled so that they too can rise into the higher dimensions of light. And that's what we want for all our brothers and sisters in darkness. And what religion has taught us is to condemn and persecute and personify evil as evil, and that only gives darkness more power. That gives the forces of imbalancement more power. That gives the energies that are not in sync with love more power. And why would I want to give them more power? I want to take away those energies and replace it with love, replace it with seeing the highest level of truth. And then they have to eventually come into that, and they will, because the more people who hold the focus and vision of change and possibility versus what they see, because see, that's the different thing here on earth, is that human beings buy too much into the disillusionment that is playing out. They don't understand we live in a quantum universe. Quantum universe means that what you see in front of you is one dimension out of many, and you get to decide which dimension you choose to react to and which one you choose to put energy to. And if you keep going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, we already know what energy you're putting into and whose team you're really on. And if you want to be on the team that's the winning team, you want to start looking at these things and going like, wow, look at all the amazing changes that are taking place on the planet. It's so amazing that this person got elected. That means things are shifting. You can create any idea you want about belief. But remember, every opinion is just an opinion. You have to trust that God has a plan. And if you don't trust in God's plan, then you've already, there's no point in you even believing anything then, because you have to trust that God has a plan to bring this planet into light. And so everything that's falling into place is a part of that plan. Even if it looks ugly or disgusting or vile or unfair, it's a part of the resurrection of energies being brought up to the surface to be healed. And the only way they can be healed is by triggering us until we realize the reason why we're being triggered is because we have thoughts and reactions and belief systems that are not congruent to God's love for us in humanity. So if we want to see this planet become a star kingdom where we can become beings of infinite potential and operate in a field of love where there's no war on the planet, and we have systems that support health where people don't need to get sick and they don't have to go through so much suffering and pain, and that people can actually live in harmony with each other, that's only going to happen when we start bringing up more of the darkness to be loved back into its original form, which, what does it come from in the beginning before it had free will, is love, right? It comes directly from our mother, father, God. As a spark, it gets free will, and then it has a choice to choose whatever it wants in its ideas, concepts, beliefs, or whatever it chooses. And dark beings should never be persecuted or looked at as evil, but instead with compassion of, I understand that you've chosen to walk away from the light. You chose to kill that person, or you chose to do these things, but you're an eternal being. And I'm going to focus my love so that you can take responsibility and take accountability for what you've done and then change those things. It's like, say, people sitting in prison and just rotting away versus someone going in there and actually bringing spiritual development into the prisons to make them actually come into realization of what they've done and how and why they did it and what made them do it, and then begin the opportunity to start repenting. And repenting isn't, what I learned a lot of people use repent as a sense of like, you'll get punished by God. But no, repenting means that you take responsibility for what you've done, and then you start making actions and you start making moves to be different, to make change, to be greater.
Yes. Oh, so, this is really strong for me. Thank you. I'm really, really stoked by this conversation. It's great. I have a quick aside I want to say about prisoners. I heard about a program where they allow cats in prisons, and that the prisoners, it was a beautiful program and very, very, very successful. The cats were happy, kitties were happy, prisoners, they really were working together and took a lot of pride in taking care of their pets. It's a beautiful story. I just love that so much. And I'm with you on that. And it's interesting to look at that word repent in a little bit of a different way. It's as if you've done something so completely wrong, and that it's not. It's what you're saying to us. It's really taking our own action around it. It's our own acknowledgement around it. Thank you so much. Kyle just put a picture up, the little kittens in the prisons, and I think that's for those of you watching on YouTube, it's a really good idea. But no, thank you. You're telling us absolutely beautiful, strong, super strong, concise words about really taking our own responsibility, but also sort of moving out of the fear and really back into love. And it's not as simple as that, though. It is as simple as that, and yet it's also, I guess, multi-tiered in a way to really watch how we're saying it and how we're acting.
Sorry for cutting off. Yeah. It's not multi-tiered. It's multi-tiered because you make it multi-tiered.
Okay.
Human beings like to create these ideas and concepts that give them justifications and reasons to be angry, upset, frustrated, hurt, and you name it. And that's also a way of hiding from God's love as well, too. Because when you're bathing yourself in God's love, there's no place for you to feel those energies. There's no place for you. You realize that we are all eternal beings. We come here to have an experience. After we're eternal, we're never going to perish. We're never going to die. So the way we look at death and the thing in war and things in the spirit world is very different than how human beings look at it. Human beings see it because they have an emotional body. In the spirit world, we understand that things play out the way they need to is according to your free will. You can choose many things, and you will choose it over and over again if you want to. And the process of growth and understanding will only be developed within each person's experience of it and realizing its value and its lack of value for its existence. And so we on Earth are still electing the value of war. And people go, well, I don't want war on the planet. But then that's not true, because I can go to a person and they say, I don't want war on the planet. I go, then why do you argue with your wife or your spouse? Why do you get road rage? Why do you get beat up on yourself and so forth? That's an act of war against yourself. So it's an act of war against someone else. And the spirits don't see it any different, other than the fact that you're desecrating yourself in a much more definitive way through energy and frequency, even versus an atomic bomb, which has more, other elements that are, attached to it. They're still the same in value. And that's why when someone in a relationship, for instance, beats up on themselves or thinks they're not good enough, the act of thinking you're not good enough is just as much as someone coming in your life and being an abusive partner to you, because you're reflecting that same insurgence of behavior towards yourself consciously and emotionally. But in the spirit world, it looks really dramatic and intense because it's a desecration of God's creation, and anything that desecrates God's creation, there is a cause and effect. And so that's why our planet continues to see war and continues to see division and continues to see these things. So the complicated aspects of it are only because we want to be righteous and we want to be right. And like, if you look at most discussions and most conversations, like, I don't argue with my wife, and there's no need to. We discuss things and we share our wisdoms and we listen to each other because she has wisdom and I have wisdom. So we honor that equally. But to go into to try to play power games with her is only my own insecurity. It's my fear that my intelligence, my emotional intelligence, my awareness, my beliefs are not being validated. So therefore I'm not existing. And so I have to fight for my own existence. And that's what people are doing, is they're fighting for their own existence instead of realizing they're already existing and they don't need to fight for their existence. They have to learn how to create what we call conscious, let me say it again. Let me get the words. Conscious acknowledgement of life in its many different colors and its many different spectrums, and realize that not their life isn't threatened because someone else's life exists. We create these imbalances because the more we condemn darkness, the stronger darkness gets, the more power it has over our world. The more we continue to be like the devil, the Satan, the more power we give to those ideas and those intellects to be developed. So people say, is Satan real? Well, yeah, Satan's real because you created it to be real through consciousness. Anything that you can bring into consciousness becomes real. And that's what people don't realize, as above, so below. You are creating the orchestration of what we call God's divinity being utilized for the purpose of creation. That's what we're doing every time we open our mouth and speak, every time we think, every time we respond to something, every time we perceive something, and every time we believe something, we're creating it into manifestation, into form. Now, if it becomes into a physical form, it means we anchor it so many times that it actually takes physical shape. And that's why people go through poverty and this thing and that thing and that thing. And all of those things are all malfunctions of thinking that have created what we call dissociated energies that created a combination of energy that creates what we call destructible matter. That means people, energies, situations, events that are harmful for the human being, created out of the incorrect intellect. And this is something that, we're going to learn more of as we start understanding frequency, understanding words, codes, combinations of codes, energies, spells, sorcery, wizardry, shamanism, and all of the ancient mysticisms that need to be brought back into human awareness so that we understand what we're actually doing when we think something or feel something or react to something, and the right forms of reaction, the right form of thinking, and the right form of feeling.
So exciting. Oh my gosh, this is a masterclass. I'm telling you, there's so much here. Thank you so much. This is really amazing. Spiritual Hacks, correct? The name of your book. And so find it everywhere. And Shaman Durek has spiritual hacking, and Shaman Durek has a beautiful website. So check out what he's got going on. You've got your own podcast as well, correct?
I have my own podcast. I also have the Lit Vibe Meditation, which is a meditation app on Google and Apple that activates your powers. So if you have dormant powers inside of you that need to wake up and become expressed in this world, I've created quick energetic hacks through meditation that awaken those. And it's been mind-blowing, the letters we've been getting from people from around the world. And I also created with my partner a spirit optimizer called the SO, which is a quantum device that activates your hidden intelligence from all your other lifetimes to come back into this lifetime. And people are doing the most amazing transformational energies and experiences. So my whole thing is really about upgrading you to your next level of embodiment and teaching you how to become truly like a Jedi in this embodiment. When you look at Star Wars, I'm training people to become the real Jedis of today and getting people to stop being codependent on gurus and spiritual leaders and all those who have a lot of followers, and get out of that very hierarchy guru mentality and start getting into self-acknowledgement and self-sovereignty, and recognizing each and every one of us as masters amongst masters and leaders amongst leaders, to create a wellspring of leaders and masters, so that anything that is in disagreement with that, you can't take out millions of people who are operating in mastery. And in the older days, you would have like one leader and many followers, and we've got to get out of the followers and get into masters and amongst masters and leaders amongst leaders. And so the whole Lit Tribe and what I stand for and everything that I do is about creating that level of awareness, both individually and collectively.
Bravo. Sign me up. I'm with you. I'm, again, not following. I am
You're walking
with
this
you
path together.
together. I like that
Truth
very,
be
very
told.
much.
Truth be told.
It was a true pleasure. Thank you very, very much for your time. Very generous with your wisdom. And I'm grateful. And I hope we have a chance to meet in person sometime, Durek. Thank you. Namaste. So special.
Akshay, I love you.
Much love to you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening. Bonnie Burkert here with Truth Be Told Transformation, new episodes almost every single week. Tony's Suite also on Fridays at 3 p.m. live, so be sure to come over to our YouTube channel at the Club Paranormal. Robert Hensley rewilding with his Truth Be Told topics. And so we're just here again. I mean, just what an opportunity that we just had for such wisdom. And I think that the message is loud and clear. We don't need to be beholden to other teachers. We need to raise our own vibe and shine on out there. So that's why I say at the end of the show, as I will right now after I tell you to follow and like and share and what we're doing, I'm here to remind you, shine on.